reporter who was reporting at the scene had not finished his sentence before a huge explosion rang out behind him. This was followed by a series of explosions. Previously, the perpetrator had warned the police about the bomb. The next explosion happened at the hospital. The captain of the special investigation team, NCI Kit Hun, quickly led his teammates to the scene. The bomb at the scene was an S-class time bomb. According to the report of the scene staff, only the perpetrator was able to defuse this bomb. Fortunately, the perpetrator was apprehended by the police. He was a former member of the Special Forces who, after being discharged from the army, became an explosion expert for the engineering company that was involved in the crime. His condition remained uncertain at the hospital. The bomb disposal team was prepared and quickly went to the command center. After observing for a moment, the captain calmly gave the first command: cut the white wire. The staff present followed Captain Kang's command. The white wire was cut quickly with only 1 minute remaining, which meant that the bomb disposal action had entered a critical moment. The scene's atmosphere became extremely tense. Next, they needed to choose between pressing the red button or the green button. In this context, it was no longer about technical skill, but a psychological battle. Captain Kang began to observe meticulously, looking at the killer's expression to find clues he might have left behind. At this time, Captain Kang received a phone call and learned that the burns on the killer's face were not caused by an incident in the military but were intentionally self-inflicted. This discovery made Captain Kang even more confident in his judgment that the murderer only had a strong interest in destruction, so he decided to press the green button at the moment of emergency. Prepared to act according to orders, the commander-in-chief suddenly grabbed the radio and ordered his subordinates to press the red button. At this time, the perpetrator showed a fierce smile. The commander-in-chief stubbornly followed his will. The bomb disposal team could only obey the command and press the red button. The countdown timer stopped, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. But unexpectedly, the countdown timer started again and ran at a rapid speed to 0. In an instant, the 4 members of the bomb disposal team turned into white skeletons. The captain of the investigation team was in extreme pain when he saw his comrades perish like that, and he felt extremely resentful towards the bomb disposal team. NCI captain also felt extremely guilty because of this incident, leading to a deep psychological obsession. He left NCI to become a criminal psychology professor teaching at a police academy. A year passed. Captain Kang originally intended to live the rest of his life like that, but in a recent serial murder case, 3 young girls were brutally murdered. The 4th victim, In Hai, was still missing. The NCI chief decided to ask Captain Kang to return to the team. Sun Yu went to the school to find Captain Kang and convey the chief's request. Although Captain Kang's psychological trauma had not disappeared, Sun Yu expressed that NCA really needed him right now. When he saw Captain Kang, his wife was supportive and encouraged him to return to NCI. After all, of the position he loved the most, and he had a considerate and supportive wife. Captain Kang felt extremely happy. Finally, he decided to return to NCI. He went to look for documents related to the recent case and began to conduct a thorough analysis. At the same time, Hun Shun was transferred from the bomb disposal team to the major crime team. After receiving the missing person report, an investigation began based on the location where In Hai went missing and her schedule before her disappearance. He quickly recognized the case. This was not an ordinary disappearance case. The NSA team also analyzed that this case was related to the previous serial murder case, so they decided to coordinate the investigation with the crime team, but Hun Shun showed disdain. The grudge between NSA's people had begun to grow since the explosion that occurred a year ago. According to Sun Yu's analysis, the killer had severe OCD. The interval between each murder would be shortened by about a day. The time gap between the 2 cases last time was 5 days, so this time the gap was probably 4 days. Now, Annie had been missing for 2 days. The remaining time for police rescue was 48 hours. The next day, when Hun Shun was investigating the environment near where the crime occurred, Sun Yu took Hun Shun's report and appeared there. She'd also realized that his analytical ability was very good, so she decided to go to the scene to see why both of them were targeting the suspect who traded used cars with Annie before she went missing. When he was about to go investigate, he received a notice asking him to return to the task force. While they were analyzing the details of the case, Captain Kang suddenly appeared and told everyone that it was too late. Hun Shun was very angry. He thought that team leader Kang could only determine the life or death of a person based on paper analysis. After saying that, he got angry and rushed out of Captain Kang's office. Knowing that Hun Shun still hated him, Captain Kang didn't explain much, but the reality was exactly as he predicted. Annie's body was discovered inside a box. It turned out that through investigating the case file, Captain Kang discovered that there was also a previously undiscovered victim. If they added in the time of that person's death and the distance to this murder, the killer's interval was probably 3 days, and today was also Tuesday. Therefore, Captain Kang could come to this conclusion. He immediately gathered the team members based on the current clues. Having conducted a criminal psychological analysis, the scope of the investigation had basically been determined, and the speed of action had to be as fast as possible because the interval until the perpetrator's next murder would be shortened to 2 days. At the same time, the sister of Han Chun's dead teammate was targeted by the killer. Na Dong had just bought Han Chun a new pair of shoes and was now waiting for a car. The killer intentionally went to talk to her. Na Dong innocently climbed into his car, but as soon as she got in, she discovered that the murderer had locked the car door. Seeing that something was wrong, she quickly called Han Chun. Coincidentally, Han Chun was calling again. Waiting for Han Chun to call back, Na Dong didn't have time to say a few words when the killer knocked her unconscious. He even threw her phone out the car window. After Han Chun knew what happened to Na Dong, he quickly reported it to the police and conducted an investigation based on the message Na Dong left before. Han Chun discovered that her location at that time was at the milk tea shop. When he went there, Sun Yu also went to the place, and the two of them analyzed the murder. The captain had once stopped in the area recently to observe. Perhaps the traffic police would have recorded the cars parked for more than 30 minutes. When the two were preparing to go get the videotape, Captain Kang's side had gone through analysis. He found the perpetrator's residence and successfully lured the perpetrator out of there to arrest him. The perpetrator's name was Park Chin. When he arrived at the police station, he refused to say anything. Han Chun was very worried because the victim was the sister of a deceased teammate. He couldn't let that friend's sister suffer again. Han Chun angrily rushed into the captain's interrogation room, even prepared to use a gun to threaten Park Chin, but Captain Kang told Park Chin that he was the only person who knew where Na Dong was kept. If they killed him, it would mean losing all clues. After calming down, Han Chun had to give up. At the same time, Sun Yu learned that Park Chin had been in a reformatory. She learned that he had a close relationship with M. Hunter, so she went to M. Hunter's house looking for clues. Unexpectedly, when Sun Yu arrived at M. Hunter's house, she discovered that she had just missed a lead. Sun Yu chased the murderer, but was hit by a car. A person got out of the car and was ready to shoot and kill her. Fortunately, Han Chun was there in time to help her escape this threat. Sun Yu, regardless of being injured, chased the culprit together with Han Chun in 2 cars. The cars began a fierce chase on the highway. The perpetrator, despite the danger, ran a red light and crashed into another white car. Seeing the white car about to change direction and rush towards a mother and child pair, they were forced to give up pursuit of the perpetrator. They chose to stop the white car to save the mother and child. The two returned to investigate the scene where Hunter was killed. Hunter did not show any signs of resistance, proving that he was killed by an acquaintance. Putting poison into a person's mouth is like executing a whistleblower. The scared expression on his face proved that Hunter had an extreme psychological obsession with the perpetrator. It was discovered that Hunter used to be in a reformatory where the murderer was. This killer wanted to kill someone, proving that they definitely knew each other, and likely had a connection when they were in the reformatory. Sun Yu shifted the focus of the investigation to the reformatory. Through investigation, Sun Yu determined that the suspect was Park Chin's probation officer named Sang Chun, and Sang Chun also discovered Sun Yu and Han Chun, so he let another probation officer drive his car to lure the two of them away, while he drove another car to the place where Na Dong was detained. For an obsessive-compulsive criminal, even if the police discovered him, he would still carry out his plan on time. At the same time, Dr. Lai decoded Park Chin's computer code and discovered surveillance camera footage of Na Dong. Luckily, Na Dong was still alive. The time interval until the killer would murder again was only 8 hours, during which time the police had to find Na Dong before the killer. Otherwise, the killer, who had severe obsessive-compulsive disorder, would definitely kill her. Through analyzing surveillance camera images, Dr. Lai determined that Na Dong was probably locked up on a boat on the Han River. At this time, it was less than an hour away from the time of the crime, but sending people to investigate the thousands of boats on the Han River was not feasible. The only way was still to make Park Chin talk. At this moment, Captain Kang's superhuman psychological analysis and psychological control ability came into play. When Park Chin saw the photo of his family member, his conscience finally awakened, and he told the police the location where Na Dong was detained. But when Han Chun arrived, Na Dong had been taken away by Sang Chun. Under the coordination of team members, Captain Kang conducted a psychological analysis of Sang Chun and successfully found his location. Na Dong was slowly being hung up. At this moment, Captain Kang and Han Chun promptly appeared, and Sang Chun took Na Dong hostage. Han Chun and Captain Kang did not dare to act rashly. At this time, Captain Kang started to play psychological games with Ensign Chun. He began to provoke Ensign Chun, continuously exploiting his weakness and attacking him until his defense line crumbled. He lured him to open fire, and at this moment, Han Chun seized the opportunity to shoot down Ensign Chun. Seeing Na Dong being saved, Captain Kang, hugging his injured arm, quietly left. Han Chun's impression of Captain Kang had changed. Captain Kang tried his best to nominate Han Chun to join Sun Yu. He brought the letter of introduction and NCA's application to find Han Chun, hoping that he could come work with him. But Han Chun could not let go of the previous explosion, so he still hesitated. He went to the gravestone of his colleague. Coincidentally, he saw the commander-in-chief, who also came there to pay his respects. Han Chun asked the commander-in-chief who had given the last order that year. The commander-in-chief finally told the truth. It was him. Even now, he still felt regretful about it. At night, Han Chun looked at the photo and thought. After a long deliberation, he finally agreed to join NCI, but the peaceful days didn't last long. A couple was discovered murdered with dirt on their car. On the face of the female victim were a man's glasses. This was the signal of a serial killer, to put the previous victim's belongings on the new victim's body. They discovered a copper coin on the victim's body that belonged to the female victim. Before that, the killer had targeted a boy and girl who were the victim's children, but in the girl's bag, a photo appeared which was of Captain Kang's family. It turned out that the reason why the killer had not been arrested for more than 10 years was because he used the lives of the family members of the former police department director to threaten him. In the end, the former police director succumbed to this threat. Before he died, the police director talked about this with Captain Kang. He thought that after he died, the killer would threaten Captain Kang and force him to become the next Umbrella. Sure enough, after the former director of the police department died not long ago, two major crimes happened in quick succession. This time, he changed his target to Captain Kang. Indeed, Captain Kang's son was led away by a man dressed in black. The man even blatantly called Captain Kang and let his son talk to him. This was clearly a naked threat. Han Chun and Sun Yu immediately ran to get the surveillance tape to search. In the end, they found Captain Kang's son in the park. But very soon, Captain Kang received a phone call from the killer asking if he was satisfied with the gift this time and if he had considered doing business with him in the future. Captain Kang's heart was heavy, but he did not choose to compromise. He handed his family over to the police for protection. The day he took his wife and children away, his eyes were filled with guilt because his belief had implicated his family. It's not time to be sad for long. Captain Kang had to bury himself in investigating. The only clue right now was the glasses worn by the recent female victim. The owner of these glasses, Kim Dong, was the only one who had escaped from the clutches of the killer all these years. To hide from the killer's search, he went into hiding. When the police found him, he knew that the killer had appeared again. Kim Dong was extremely scared. He kept stuffing mints into his mouth to suppress his fear. Just thinking about what happened before would make him feel extremely scared. Now he was the only one who had escaped death under the killer's control. The captain decided to let the police protect him, but Kim Dong refused. Seeing that he could not get any useful information from Kim Dong, Captain Kang decided to start investigating the latest case. Very quickly after that, they identified and arrested a suspect, but unexpectedly, the interrogation went extremely smoothly. He immediately admitted that he was the killer, but looking at his expression and behavior, it was obvious that he was under great pressure. Dr. Lai discovered that the murderer had definitely plotted to target Captain Kang. Everyone was very impatient. Dr. Lai directly rushed into the interrogation room and asked him if he was being threatened by someone. At this time, Insai's central computer was attacked by hackers. They remembered the USB they found in the house. After checking, they discovered that this USB clearly contained malicious code. It was a trap set by the assassin. His goal was for Seo Chinen to bring this USB into the NCI center. At this moment, Han Chun suddenly remembered the time when he met the pair of lucky escapees that his sister had told him about. He knew one thing about the girl who mentioned that the killer smelled of mint candy. Captain Kang suddenly discovered that the problem was with the lucky person who escaped, named Kim Dong. He remembered when Kim Dong described the situation. At that time, the detail of the assassin breaking the finger of Kim Dong's fiancé was clearly remembered. But in the situation of being suddenly attacked, it was basically impossible to have such a clear memory. It was obvious that unless it was caused by him, the thing that Kim Dong often ate was also mint candy. Captain Kang was sure that Kim Dong was the murderer they were looking for. Right then, a video was sent to NCA's computer. Sure enough, the killer was Kim Dong. Behind him was a member of Seo Chin-hoon's family. He said to Captain Kang, "If you don't accept the transaction, then wait to bear the consequences." After that, he threatened Seo Chin-hoon's family. At this moment, Captain Kang discovered that the location of the safe house had been revealed. He immediately went there, but what he saw was a seriously injured police officer lying on the ground. His wife and son had disappeared without a trace. The wounded police officer told Captain Kang that the killer had deceived his wife, saying that the safe house had been attacked and told her to throw away her phone and not contact anyone and find another phone to contact him. While everyone was looking for the captain's family everywhere, the assassin called him on another line. That was his wife's voice. After the wife heard her husband's voice, she immediately realized she had been tricked. Captain Kang tried to tell his wife to calm down, then told his son they were playing a game of police catching bad people and actively cooperate. Knowing that it would be difficult for his wife to escape, he could only ask his son to hug his wife for him. The wife also seemed to have sensed the signs of death. She said goodbye to her son. Then Captain Kang told him the game would start and to wait for him to run away. Kid Don put a gun to the head of Captain Kang's wife. Trying to suppress his sadness, Captain Kang said to his wife, "Please don't say sorry to me. It's enough that you and I have had happy days. Hanma also thinks the same, so I absolutely don't feel sorry." A gunshot rang out, shooting straight into the hearts of the police officers who solved countless cases but could not protect their own family. Captain Kang returned home and saw his wife lying in a pool of blood. The suffering was clear on her face. Suddenly he saw a pair of shoes behind the curtain. He quickly opened fire. Sure enough, it was Kim Dong, but he was wearing a bulletproof vest, so he was not injured. The two immediately rushed to fight each other. In the end, the assassin was defeated by Captain Kang, who continuously threw his fists at him. He almost beat him to death there. Fortunately, Sun Yu's group arrived just in time to stop his actions. Only then did Captain Kang regain his composure. He quickly went to find his son. Seeing his son lying in a wooden bed in the room, he was somewhat reassured. It turned out that the crime-solving game was a signal. His son was lucky enough to escape an accident. Only then did he return to his wife's side with tears in his eyes. The tears that he had been holding back for so long could no longer be held back. No one could understand his current gut-wrenching pain. When everyone thought this case was over, Kim Dong escaped from prison. Today, Hun Shun had a day off, so he went back to visit his mother, but when he participated in the reward-giving activity at the youth center, he was urgently arrested by the criminal police on suspicion of murder. The day the case happened, the last person who spoke on the phone with Captain Kang was also Hun Shun. All evidence pointed to Hun Shun, but he firmly said that on that day it was Kang Hun who asked him to go to the youth center. But he couldn't meet anyone, so he went to meet Hun Shun. Kang Hun and Hun Shun have had a very good relationship since they were young. Hun Shun had no motive for murder, but the police mentioned the murder case in Duquesne that happened more than 10 years ago. That year, Hun Shun was the suspect in the case. The police suggested that Hun Shun knew the truth related to that case, and that's why he killed the murderer. Hun Shun asked if they thought he was the real murderer. Being a police officer for so many years, could he be so stupid as to hide his fingerprints and then let himself appear in the surveillance tape? At the same time, the entire NCI team arrived at the station. No one believed that Hun Shun was a criminal. They were determined to find evidence to clear his name. In fact, Sun Yu was also investigating the murder case in Duquesne because that year she was the first person to discover the victim. Sun Yu's grandmother was at home. Whenever she had free time, she would visit her grandmother. Fate had pushed them to become close friends. That day, the two of them were supposed to go out, but Sun Yu never appeared. Passing by, Sun Yu heard the news that a high school student was missing. She was worried, so she ran to look everywhere and finally found the deceased by the Duquesne River. At that time, the main suspects arrested by the police were Hun Shun and Kang Hojun, so Hojun's death was definitely related to the case. But all the evidence was pointing towards Hun Shun. The remaining time for NCI to investigate was 2 days. Captain Kang decided to start the investigation from Kang Hojun's death, and the reason he came to find Hun Shun first. Only then could he know why the murderer blamed Hun Shun. So he divided the team to investigate. Nana was in charge of searching for documents related to the case. Captain Kang went to meet Hun Shun. Mai Dong and Dr. Lai went to the scene to investigate. Captain Kang went to meet Hun Shun and asked him to provide all the clues about the case. It was clear Hun Shun that Captain Kang was trying to analyze his psychology. Hun Shun felt very surprised, but Captain Kang said he never doubted him. He just had to know everything to figure out who wanted to blame Hun Shun. However, Hun Shun kept quiet and decided not to say anything more to Captain Kang. On the other side, Dr. Lai and Min Dong went to investigate the surrounding environment where the body was discovered. Dr. Lai concluded that perhaps the perpetrator was a local person very familiar with the surroundings. He had calculated very carefully the time to release the dam, clearly doing so to make others discover the body at the desired time. They discovered that this place was a tourist attraction. Every year at this time, people would come to take photos of migratory birds. So this year, there would definitely be people who had taken photos or videos here. The two of them decided to continue investigating in this direction. Nana found out that in 2004, the youth center had a fire. The fire destroyed a lot of documents. The suspect at that time was a young man. The police suspected that it was because of his sister that he had developed a defensive mentality. They vaguely heard discussions about whether there was sexual harassment at the center, and Han Chun's situation could be related to the harassment. It's also possible that because he knew about the situation, he was killed, but such speculation had happened before. The police had also investigated but did not find the suspect. Captain Kang and Min Dong came to question Choi Sang-ho, but he persistently refused to communicate, especially when Captain Kang asked if Han Chun had ever been harassed while at the center. Choi Sang-ho immediately became extremely impatient. Originally, Captain Kang speculated that Choi Sang-ho was behind the manipulation of the fire, but Nana investigated the truth of the incident, which turned out to be due to school violence. After a deep investigation of the truth, it gradually emerged that the person who was sexually harassed was actually Choi Sang-ho, and Kang Hun was the victim. The person in charge of them was named Kim Trung-soo, who previously held the position of head of the administrative department at the center. Afterwards, the whereabouts of the resigned staff list was unknown, and Kim Trung-soo's name was not included. Kim Trung-soo's car was registered under the name of the director of the Kim Han-trung Youth Center. It was possible that Kim Trung-soo was the director's illegitimate child. Based on what they learned before, they could speculate that the person responsible for the harassment had seen Kim Trung-soo do this to these children. Captain Kang had his own plans. He went to the interrogation room to find Han Chun. He told Han Chun that all these years he had been investigating the case in Dukang. Even though Han Chun became the object of suspicion, Han Chun still did not tell what he knew because he always wanted to hide one thing. On the day of the accident, Han Chun saw his brother walking with Chinanan at night. The first time he gave his testimony, he said the same thing, but then he reversed his statement because he was afraid that everything was true. For Han Chun, who was only 17 years old at that time, this was the best choice to protect his brother. Then his brother got into a car accident and became vegetative. In the end, whether he was the murderer or not was impossible to know. Han Chun must have thought about a problem. If his brother really was the murderer, why did they have to kill him? Because the person who was victimized by Kim Trung-soo also had his brother. That's why this person made an appointment to meet Chin Han to confirm that she really saw that scene. Han Chun did not want to find the real culprit of the case in Dukang, but was worried about his criminal behavior being exposed, so he wanted to hide his true identity. Captain Kang shouted that it was to hide his crime on behalf of his brother. This was Captain Kang's analysis of Han Chun's criminal psychology. Han Chun immediately got mad and stood up. Captain Kang's grip at the same time also broke the microphone in the interrogation room. Captain Kang pushed him against the wall and then whispered to him that he had done it on purpose. Captain Kang told Han Chun that the evidence proving Kim Trung-soo was not present at the scene was fake. He arrested Han Chun and told him to lead him to the person who saw what happened that day. It was the criminal Kim Trung-soo who knew that someone had seen his crime, so he killed her. Surely Ho-dun also discovered that the police station was not trustworthy. That's why he wasn't afraid to travel far to find Han Chun. At that time, Dun wanted to show Han Chun the evidence that he kept to protect his life, but unfortunately, he was killed and the evidence destroyed. The accident of Han Chun's brother was also likely planned by someone else. Because of Chanan's death, surely the criminal would suspect that the killer was Kim Trung-soo. He must have discovered something, that's why he was assassinated. Now there was certainly NCI's intervention. At the same time, Kim Trung-soo also received news that he was about to flee, but suddenly a knife was pressed against his neck. When the captain arrived, he only saw the passport that Kim Trung-soo had dropped. Han Chun remembered what Captain Kang said. He was sure he had found that inner snake. It was the head of the department. He made an appointment with the police, told them his analysis, and then begged them to let him go. Han Chun wanted to personally go find the head of the police department. He chose to believe Han Chun intentionally let him go, telling him that when he came to find the head of the police department, he must immediately notify him. But for now, Han Chun still had the identity of a suspect. He had no choice but to come find Choi Sang-ho to ask for help in performing the scene where Kim Trung-soo escaped. So Choi Sang-ho used his phone to lure the police. He drove Choi Sang-ho's official vehicle to escape the checkpoint. During the police check, the head of the department was using a knife to press Kim Trung-soo to record a confession to all the charges. In the end, Kim Trung-soo could only admit that he had accidentally killed the victim during the rape. Unable to bear it at that moment, Hun Chun went to the place where he held the gun and pointed it at the police department head, forcing him to tell him why he did what he did. It turned out that the head of the police department knew about Kim Trung-soo's actions that year. Kim Trung-soo did that to Hun Chun, and the department head also knew about it. When preparing to arrest Kim Trung-soo, Director Kim came with a suitcase of money to find him because it was to treat his daughter's illness. He changed Kim Trung-soo's alibi to a fake one. Then after realizing that Kim Trung-soo was the murderer, he called the police. Coincidentally, the person who answered the phone was the head of the department, so he made an appointment with Kim Trung-soo to meet. While driving, he caused an accident and found out that Kang Hun was planning to give evidence to Hun Chun. In order to hide the truth, he killed Kang Hun. The department head, who was once a model police officer, became corrupted. In the end, he could not resist the allure of money and harmed himself. Unfortunately, in this world, there is no medicine for regret. The boss decided to end this matter. He did not hesitate at all. He shot Kim Trung-soo, then shot him again, ending his life. This disgrace was finally cleared up and Hun Chun regained his freedom, but the doctor went to get a video from the migratory bird cameraman. They discovered that the real killer who murdered Kang Hun was not the head of the department, but the assassin Kim Dong. All suspicions pointed at the special investigation team. Captain Kang was sharp and discovered Kim Dong was planning an extremely large plot. Not long after, the team leader, in order to establish a professional image for the team, led the team to the school to organize a speech. After the lecture ended, a female student majoring in criminal psychology, who was also a fan of Captain Kang, came to look for him to get his autograph and business card. On the night of the birthday party, she suddenly bumped into a person with an injured leg. Kindly helping someone unexpectedly fell into a trap. Not long after, the body was discovered with Captain Kang's business card and signature still on the female student. The investigation of the case was immediately carried out. The crime scene and the body disposal scene of this case were similar in nature to the serial murder cases they had solved before. The details of the case, including the choice of location, showed deep knowledge of previous cases. Then another case happened where a female driver was shot, and the perpetrator destroyed the car's journey diary. This case was a simulation of Jang Kite's serial murder case that NCI had solved before. NCI realized that 2 consecutive cases simulating criminals committing crimes could not be a coincidence. Surely the perpetrator intended to target them. When they returned to the crime scene, they discovered that the perpetrator was not only simulating the crime method of criminal Jang Kai, but it was also discovered that Kim Dong's signature symbol was the ring worn on the victim's hand that belonged to a female university student who had previously encountered an accident. On this side, Sun Yu was temporarily suspended from her position due to the manslaughter of a criminal, but she still quietly investigated Kim Dong's case. She brought the butcher's autobiography written by reporter Sun to an expert examiner who discovered that the book was written by 2 people together. Nana discovered that inside the book there was a hidden code through which to log into the large fan club page of the criminal Kim Dong. Through analysis, Dr. Lai discovered specific IP ranges hidden in the book. After entering the site, they discovered that Kim Dong's novels were constantly being updated, and each new novel corresponded to a murder case with similar details. Just like in real life, now the 3rd novel had been published, describing a robbery in a church. Indeed, in real life, a similar crime happened except that the murder location was not in the main church. The method and other details continued to be similar to Dong Du's serial murder case. At the same time, the murderer also left at the scene a pair of glasses belonging to reporter Sun Nana. Through investigation, a combination of the abbreviation MW was discovered. It was the abbreviation of a newspaper. Dr. Lai and Sun Yu went to investigate and discovered that the murderer had sent out murder warnings through advertising. At this time, Captain Kang received a phone call from Kim Dong asking him, "Are you satisfied with the gift you received just now?" Captain Kang told him not to be too arrogant. "Very soon I will catch you," he said. Kim Dong responded nervously, "Then wait for the next surprise gift." The next novel had been updated with content depicting the scene of a man meeting a girl through a platform to buy and sell used goods, implicitly implying the method of committing the crime and the killer's next target. Through an investigation, Nana identified 3 suspects and 3 locations that were likely to become crime scenes this time. Captain Kang immediately arranged for people to set up an ambush in the area near it. Sure enough, it was almost time for one of the suspects, Kang Chi-hon, to appear at the scene. Hun Chun and Sun Yu immediately surrounded and arrested him. Hon then took the girl who came to trade as a hostage. When Hun Chun confronted him, he took the opportunity to knock away the gun in his hand and save the hostage. But when interrogating Kang Chi-hon, he was extremely smart and determined not to admit the crime. He also understood the psychology of criminals. Captain Kang's interrogation techniques had absolutely no effect. Because there was not enough evidence, they had no choice but to release him. At this very moment, the director, who had always supported the activities of the NCI, suddenly announced that all simulated murder cases would be transferred to the city investigation team to handle. The NCI team was forced to withdraw from investigation activities. This made the team leader very dissatisfied because they were the ones who understood this case the most deeply. Changing them to the investigation team would only prolong the case, but the director requested they comply with the orders of his superiors. At this time, the director suddenly received a call. After entering the room to listen for a few minutes, he hurriedly left. Captain Kang discovered the director's abnormality and told Nana to find the director's location. Then a new post appeared online again predicting the murder of a new person, but this time the content was different from the usual style, not describing the context and methods clearly, only stating the time of the next crime. In the afternoon, the target was described as the hostage who was successfully rescued from the hands of Hone yesterday. At this time, Nana discovered the whereabouts of the director. He was going to the hospital. It turned out that the director's daughter had died. Kim Dong had kidnapped him and forced him to kill the hostage who was rescued yesterday. When the NC team arrived, they unknowingly passed by Kim Dong, pretending to be a doctor, but in the end, the other hostage was still kidnapped and the director was also taken away by Kim Dong. At this time, on the website, there was a new notice that the location of the next case was a coffee shop near Highway No. 27. Captain Kang and Han Chun went there to investigate, but when they entered the coffee shop, they discovered Kim Dong was blatantly sitting and drinking coffee. When they approached him, his actions clearly showed his arrogance. The reason he dared to be so bold was because he had taken several university students as hostages, locked them in a sealed room, and was continuously pumping smoke inside with only one oxygen mask. If they couldn't be saved within 3 hours, they would die. Even though there was a large number of police surrounding the coffee shop outside for the safety of the student hostages, the police could not take action. Captain Kang took him away before he was willing to reveal the location where the students were locked up. Captain Kang only agreed until Kim Dong arrived and told him the location as promised, but he still refused to tell where the director was currently locked up. During the emergency, Captain Kang had no choice but to go save the students first. When he arrived, he only saw a few students fighting to the point of exhaustion and smoke from Kim Dong. In fact, the director woke up from a coma. It turned out he didn't kill the hostages in the hospital but was prodded by Kim Dong. He tried to untie the rope on his hands. At this moment, he heard his daughter's cry for help. When she was about to leave, she encountered Kim Dong and returned. The director risked his life to hold on to Kim Dong and let his daughter run first. In the end, his daughter successfully escaped and he fell into the clutches of the devil. Kim Dong phoned Captain Kang to ask him if he was going to make a deal or not. He asked him to stop chasing him, and he would also disappear like he did before. But Captain Kang is not a person who easily compromises, let alone with a criminal. Captain Kang discovered that in recent cases, Kim Dong was probably nearby and observing. So he arranged for the police to set a trap, and sure enough, the accomplice from the previous murder appeared. Kim Dong, like the previous times, stood quietly on the side, observing everything, but Kang's police team followed all of them. He told Nana to locate them. Kim Dong's car was slippery, and he and Han Chun silently followed to a mental hospital that was also Kim Dong's previous nightmare. Choosing this place also meant that he wanted to end everything. The situation is now extremely tense. Captain Kang and Han Chun, supporting each other, went inside. They discovered that in the room that Kim Dong had just left in the corner, there seemed to be someone struggling miserably. Han Chun thought it was the director. Captain Kang reminded him to act cautiously. As expected, that figure was Kim Dong's impersonation. Seeing that he had been exposed, he didn't bother pretending anymore. He closed the door and took out a bag. Given to Han Chun, there was only one gas mask inside. He had already put on the gas mask for himself. Then he immediately pressed to open the poison gas valve. This time, he wanted to see what choice Captain Kang and Han Chun would face when confronted with life and death. But the scene he saw was Captain Kang and Han Chun saving each other. Then Captain Kang and Kim Dong suddenly got into a fight in the chaos. Han Chun picked up the gun and pointed it at Kim Dong, while Kim Dong took Captain Kang as a hostage. Only then did Kim Dong tell the truth that the director had been murdered by him a long time ago, and his goal was to destroy Captain Kang, causing the NCI to lose all credibility in the hearts of the people. While Kim Dong calmly talked, Han Chun and Captain Kang tried to resist. After several gunshots rang out, Han Chun tensely waited for the smoke to clear. The figure of the captain slowly appeared. At this moment, Han Chun's anxious heart was finally relieved. Kim Dong, The evil man who treated human life like grass finally had to receive retribution in this world. There has never been peace in such a chaotic era like now. The NSA team still carries the noble mission of moving forward, fighting hard against evil. The movie is ended. Thanks for watching this recap. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to comment below and tell me what movie you want me to recap next.